Hello and good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, as you know that from time to time we conduct various lectures for you on different topics on different subjects so that it becomes convenient for you to get in-depth knowledge, to get in-depth analysis of all the areas around you. So dear friends, in this session today we are going to talk on, or I would say we are going to get in-depth knowledge on the topic social political thought of Mahatma Gandhi. Dear friends, for this we have with us in our studios Dr. Ashok Kumar Pankaj. Dr. Ashok Kumar Pankaj is a professor in Department of Political Sciences in Council for social development, as well as I would like to tell you all he has been working on rural development as well as he is also working on Indian democracy. He has worked on Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. He has edited a book on Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. I hope so. If I am not wrong, we'll have the clarification regarding his work on edition, the book he has edited through him only. First of all, I would like to welcome him. Let's try to understand about the book he edited, as well as then we are going forward and talking on social political thought of Mahatma Gandhi. Hello sir, welcome to the EduSet lecture. As I've already mentioned, if I'm not wrong, if you want to give any clarifications regarding the book you have edited, we would want to have little words from you.
This book is basically explanation and analysis of the implementation of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, and I have mentioned this book specifically because this is culmination of one of the important ideas of Gandhi in terms of putting it on the ground, because Gandhi from the very beginning of his life, in most of his arguments, ideas and preachings, he emphasized that dignity of labor should be the focus of human civilization. This act actually is culmination of Gandhian thought in that way that it puts dignity of labor in practice and allows Indian people to experiment how dignity of labor could lead to a proper liberation of Indian people.
So over to you sir, once again, as we have already discussed and already told all the students that we are going to talk on social political thought of Mahatma Gandhi. So over to you sir.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would start with the influences which led to formulation of various social and political thought of Mahatma Gandhi, and to begin with, the most important influence in which he contextualized his thought is modern civilization. If you look at Gandhi's literature, in fact some of the books which have been written by Gandhi, the most significant one is Hind Swaraj, and it is important in the sense that this is the one book in which he tried to bring most of his important ideas about India, about civilization, about how to rebuild modern India after independence. All these ideas have been expressed in a very candid and very lucid manner in this book, and this book could be a kind of the single textbook to understand Gandhi's social and political thought. So to start with, even the idea of this book was formulated based on the modern civilization. When Gandhi looked at the modern civilization, he identified Western civilization with modern civilization, and he calls it, he explains it that he has used this term interchangeably, because for Gandhi, this modern civilization is nothing but Western civilization, and Western civilization is nothing but industrial civilization. And he identifies industrial civilization with Western civilization and then distinguishes the former with the Eastern civilization or ancient civilization of India. And then he also makes some distinction between the two in the sense that in ancient civilization of India, there was other values and other principles which used to govern the civilization. But in Western industrial civilization, the most important principle is, in fact, it is industrialization, it is the search for or greed for money. And then this kind of civilization which Western industrial society has produced repelled Gandhi, and then Gandhi started looking for something which could be a kind of alternative to modern industrial civilization. Many of his concepts, like idea of a state, capital, colonialism, self-government, idea on machine, were formed based on the modern civilization. most of his ideas related to ideas like state, capital colonialism, were in fact formulated as a kind of confrontation to the ideas on which modern civilization was based, and Gandhi tried to give a kind of alternative to the ideas which are led to the, or which in fact form the core of modern civilization. The second most important influence on Gandhi's political and social thought was the way he experimented with politics in South Africa. Like for Gandhi, the idea of nationalism, the first clue of idea of nationalism he picked up in South Africa when he faced racial discrimination by the British colonializer in the country. And then he also started thinking about that what kind of nationalists should be there not only in India but also across the world. And for that matter, Gandhi preached his own idea of nationalism. So in South Africa, he learned a lot, and in fact, he accepted that for him South Africa was the first laboratory of politics for Gandhi. There he learned the lessons in nationalism, and he formulated his own idea of nationalism, which differed from many of the other scholars, even including Indian nationalists, who were in fact talking of nationalism, which Gandhi was not supporting. For Gandhi, nationalism consisted of, he used to say that I am first an Indian, then a Gujarati, and finally a Kathiawadi. So he used to start from India first and then come to province and then come to his native place. But other nationalists were talking in fact reverse of the process. But in South Africa, apart from the formulation of the idea of nationalism, Gandhi also developed many other important ideas like the art of politics, how to negotiate with the colonial administration, how to negotiate with the colonial government. He learned through the politics of Transvaal and other areas in South Africa when we had to negotiate with the British colonial administration. He also led a number of organizations in South Africa, and that helped him in terms of building Indian National Congress later on in India. So South Africa was the first laboratory of Gandhi to experiment many of his ideas, or also that led to formulation of some of his important ideas. Apart from the impact which he got in South Africa, Gandhi was also influenced by the politics of expatriate Indians who were preaching for extremist kind of, or rather revolutionary kind of a struggle to liberate India from the British colonialism. In particular, Gandhi learned about the experience, or learned about the thought of Shyamji Krishna Verma and B.D. Savarkar. Both of them were stationed in London, and they were propagating for revolutionary methods to liberate India from British colonialism. In fact, the ideas of Shyamji Krishna Verma and B.D. Savarkar were opposed by Gandhi, and Gandhi developed his idea of non-violence, satyagraha, non-cooperation, as a kind of counter response to the ideas which were being propagated by Shyamji Krishna Verma and B.D. Savarkar. So in that way, even his ideas of satyagraha, non-violence and non-cooperation were formulated as a kind of counter ideology to what was being preached by Shyamji Krishna Verma and B.D. Savarkar. Then the third important influence on Gandhi's social and political thought was the experiment with the Indian national movement. Gandhi, when he entered Indian politics or Indian national movement, he learned a lot from what was happening inside the Indian Congress, and the first important influence on Gandhi was the 1907 Surat split, in which moderates and extremists were divided. But Gandhi was opposed to the idea of both. Moderates were in favor of having British rule, and with that British rule, they were pleading for gradual realization of self-rule and more greater participation of Indian in the British colonial rule. On the other hand, extremists were not in favor of having Indians sharing rule with the British government, but rather they were pleading for complete independence from the British. But Gandhi was opposed to the idea of both moderates and extremists, and he realized that both of them were not giving the right kind of idea to liberate the country. So Gandhi, in response to the moderate and extremist division inside the Congress, formulated his own ideas, and then he formulated his idea of self-rule, which was different from the position of both moderate and extremist. Then Gandhi not only defined self-rule, but he also distinguished it between self-governance and self-rule. He argued that what the moderate and extremists were pleading, both were basically pleading for self-governance. What Gandhi was saying, that self-governance is not the solution lies in self-rule. And then he also later on elaborated what he means by self-rule. I will come to this definition of self-rule later on. Among other important influences on Gandhi, but of course Western intellectual context and Western intellectual tradition. Some of the important influences on Gandhi I will highlight here. One is, the first influence was his training in Western law and jurisprudence, because he was trained in England as a barrister, and in the course of his training he learned Western political liberalism. He came to know about the Western judicial system. He learned the liberal philosophy. So all these ideas influenced Gandhi's political and social thought later on, and he developed some of the basic principles also based in response to the Western liberalism and Western idea. Then the second important Western influence on Gandhi was theosophy, which led to a number of formulations by Gandhi, basically related to the social sector. Among some of the important intellectuals who influenced Gandhi's thought were Tolstoy and Carlyle Ruskin. Tolstoy, Gandhi influenced Gandhi a lot. Particularly, Gandhi picked up the idea of non-violence and evils of modern civilization from Tolstoy. Some of the important works of Tolstoy which influenced Gandhi are The Kingdom of God is Within You, How Shall We Escape, The Slavery of Our Times and the First Step, Letter to a Hindu, that explained India's weaknesses leading to her colonization. Then Carlyle Ruskin was another important influence on Gandhi, and Gandhi developed his economic philosophy, especially his theory of dignity of labor, based on Ruskin theory, which he propounded in his book The Political Economy of Art. And Gandhi also picked up the idea of the dignity of labor from Ruskin, based on his book The Political Economy of Art, in which Ruskin enunciated a doctrine that the work should be enjoyed like a kind of thing which one should feel as a proud of the doing the work, not somebody feels alienated from the work which is doing, which is a kind of alienation theory which was propounded by the Marx and dialectical materialism theory. So this Carlyle Ruskin and later on Gandhi were in a sense responding to the theory of alienation which was propounded by Marx, and this was also a response to the idea of the industrial civilizations where the work was not being worshipped, where the dignity of labor was not preached there, where dignity of labor was not there in existence. So Gandhi preached that if you have to ensure a kind of proper balance between mind and body, then you must ensure that the person who is working must also respect and must also accept the work as a kind of dignity of labor. And the theory of Sarvodaya and Antyodaya was also influenced by Ruskin's book Unto the Last, which influenced Gandhi's idea of Sarvodaya and Antyodaya. Then among other Western scholars, I would name a few who influenced Gandhi were Edward Carpenter, Max Nordau, Godfrey Blount, Thomas Tyler, Robert Harborough Serrat, Godfrey Blount. And then finally, the Indian intellectual context was equally important because Gandhi learnt a lot from some of Indian texts. Important texts for him were Gita, Upanishads, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Tulsidas Ramcharitmanas, and of course the Code of Manu. This Indian literature also influenced Gandhi's social and political thought, and some of his own ideas were influenced to a great deal by this Indian text. Now coming to the social and political thought of Gandhi, I will start with the first social thought of Gandhi, and then I will come to political thought, and while addressing these two, I will also address some of his economic thought. In fact, if one has to look Gandhi's thought, one must look in totality, because Gandhi's ideas were developed in a way that if you segregate one idea from the other, you miss some important element of Gandhian thought. So to understand Gandhi, the first important thing is that one must look entire philosophy of Gandhi in totality, and one must also look his social, political, and economic thought in an integral framework, only then one would be able to understand Gandhi's ideas and thought in a proper manner, in a proper way. Otherwise, one would pick up misleading information, misleading idea from Gandhi's thought. So the first thing about Gandhi I would start with is village republics. In fact, village republics, the idea of village republics was picked up Gandhi from Henry Maine, who had first written on Indian village republics, and Henry Maine portrayed a very ideal kind of typical Indian village where every need of the individual or every need of the village society was being met inside the village, because village was completely independent of, from outside market or outside condition. Village was so self-sufficient that most of the requirements of the people living in the village were being met by the things and goods produced locally and services produced locally. So, and even in terms of administration, this village was completely independent from the outside administration. It has its own political administration system in terms of Panchayati Raj institution. It has its own administration system through again Nyaya Panchayat. So, this village republics was the most important social thought of Gandhi, and Gandhi picked up this idea from Henry Maine, but he developed this the concept of village republics, adding his own ideas and adding his own vision. Gandhi, of course, preached about the village republics and strongly pleaded for going for village republics, primarily as a kind of response to the evils of industrial civilization and the evils of Western and industrial civilization. Because Western industrial civilization we are propagating a kind of system, or we are promoting a kind of systems where industrial goods we are flooding the village system, and we are ruining village industry, we are ruining the village society, because the basic nature of industrial society was to generate profit, to locate, to create more goods than needed in the society, and in the whole process the idyllic self-republic or self-sufficient village of India was getting destroyed by the industrial manufactured goods. And this had many implications. For example, this led to loss of employment to the villagers. This led to flooding of the industrial manufactured goods in the village, replacement of the village services by other services by the modern sector, and as a result of that, villagers were forced to live to the city, were forced to migrate to the cities where the conditions were not very appropriate and where they were still struggling for livelihood. So Gandhi thought that for a country like India, where most of the people were staying in the villages, it would be a ruinous prescription to introduce modern and heavy industries, because this will destroy the villages. Once we destroy the villages, then the soul of India will be destroyed. So for him, village republic was the most important social thought through which he wanted to reconstruct post-independent India. But in village republics, he was emphasizing a kind of complete integral society where the social evils would not form the part of the social life of the villages, but in village republics, the society would be a kind of homogeneous and integrated society. Coming related to the village republic was his idea of caste, varna and untouchability, because Gandhi was repelled by some of Indian social practices, and he thought that if he has to reconstruct his village republics in the way it was in the ancient period, he will have to also explain, or he will have to also fight some of the social evils which were practiced at that time. Two important social evils Gandhi was particularly emphasizing. One was caste system, another was untouchability. Now, some of the critiques of Gandhi found Gandhi a bit ambivalent when he spoke of abolition of caste system, but not of varna system, and he also spoke, or rather he attacked untouchability very harshly. For Gandhi, actually, the caste system and untouchabilities, these were the two practices which need to be attacked and which need to be abolished in a society. But he was not opposed to the varna system, because for Gandhi, varna system was natural as well as a functional division of society. So he he was in favor of retaining one system, but he was not in favor of retaining caste and untouchability. And many of critiques of Gandhi actually argue that this gives a kind of very ambivalent position, because caste system is so much integrated to the Varna system that if you attack caste system and don't attack Varna system, practically you are not attacking the caste system. In particular, I would like to mention Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, who was very critical of this idea of Gandhi, because Ambedkar pleaded that caste system, the core of caste system lies in Varna system and lies in Hinduism. If you not attack one, you will not be able to get the result which you want to get. So for him, if one has to attack the caste system, one has to attack untouchability, one must attack Varna system as well. Gandhi was not in position where he was pleading for attacking caste system and untouchability, but not he was pleading for attacking Varna system. He was in favor of retaining Varna system. Then another important idea, social idea of Gandhi was dignity of labor, which learned from Ruskin. For Gandhi, labor considered the single most important component of human civilizations on which society should be organized. In industrial society and in Western society, there was clear division between labor and capital. There were people who were owning capital, and there were people who were engaging labor, or who were rather hiring labor. So a kind of conflictual relations were being seen in the industrial society, because the capital or the owner of the capital was purchasing labor, and the relations which were existing between the two were exploitative. Gandhi called these relations not only exploitative but also violence based, also oppression based. So Gandhi was opposed to this system where somebody was owning capital and that capitalist was purchasing labor of the poor people. He found this idea very much repugnant to his idea of the reconstruction of a new civilization, reconstruction of a new India, where he explained that dignity of labor should be in the center of the reconstruction, because he realized, or he argued, that if we don't restore dignity of labor as the fundamental principles of economic organization, then the evils of capitalism will remain in the society. And with capitalism, there are so many evils which Gandhi highlighted, and most important evil which Gandhi emphasized was in fact exploitative nature of capitalism. Even Gandhi explained colonialism as a kind of extension of capitalism, which was also explained by Lenin in similar fashion. So Gandhi, in a sense, here is in agreement with Lenin when he said that capitalism has resulted in colonialism. So to even fight against colonialism, Gandhi thought that if we have to fight against colonialism, we must restore dignity of labor, because once we restore dignity of labor, we would be able to address the evils of capitalism, and only then we would be able to get free from the evils of colonialism. Another important aspect of Gandhi's social thought was education. In fact, Gandhi was not in favor of the kind of education which was being practiced or which was being given through the Western education system. He was in favor of a kind of education where there would be a kind of unity between training of mind and body, and that was the basic concept of his education. And for that matter, Gandhi pleaded for establishment of basic school, and in fact he established and he was instrumental in establishing a number of basic schools where the emphasis of entire learning process was both to develop body as well as mind. So for Gandhi, if you just develop mind and you don't develop body, then there would be a kind of disintegration of mind and body, and in that kind of body and mind, there would not be a kind of perfect human being. For him, education was not only a kind of means of job, but also it was an instrument through which Gandhi was thinking to create a better human civilization, a better human being, where everybody would be his body and mind would be in complete integration. And this would lead to a kind of fighting against most of the social evils for which Gandhi was Gandhi was opposing and Gandhi was pleading. Then among other important social thought of Gandhi, I would mention in a specific trusteeship, which is related to his idea of or his attack on capitalism. When Gandhi was developing these ideas, capitalism was growing very fast, and as I said earlier that Gandhi explained capitalist arrangement as basically a kind of exploitative arrangement where the owner of the capital or owner of land and asset was exploiting the poor or purchasing the labor of the poor. In that process, he was dehumanizing the human being, he was reducing the human being to a mere slavery, and Gandhi that's why thought that the system of this capitalist system must be fought out, it must be rooted out, and for that matter he pleaded for a kind of alternative, and as an alternative he developed his theory of trusteeship. When Gandhi pleaded against capitalism, he said that all these capitalists can be converted into a kind of trustee of the capital, trustee of the assets, a trustee of the assets. Through that trustee, these people could be also converted as a kind of trustee of the society. He said that the relation between the capital and labor is very hostile, and there is the only way to fight out this hostile relation between the two is that you convert the capitalists into trustee. If they become trustee of the property, a trustee of the capital which they own, then they will stop exploitation of the labor, and then a balanced relation between the capital and labor will be restored in the society. So for him the trusteeship was an important structural principle of organization through which he wanted to reconstruct independent India, not only independent India, but he wanted to reconstruct entire the capitalist society and entire human civilization in which there would be a kind of harmonious relation between capitalist and laborer, and both of them will earn their livelihood through dignity of labor. So for him this trusteeship theory was basically a kind of an idea through which he wanted to reconstruct society where the relation between capital and labor will be a cordial, a harmonious relation, and where there will not be exploitation of the labor by the capital. Then under trusteeship there were the questions whether the trustee of the capital would be allowed to inherit the property or not, but Gandhi was not in favor of allowing the trustee to inherit the property, because he thought that if we allow the inheritance of the property by the trustee, then probably the abuse, the greed for the capital will continue there. So he wanted to fight out this greed in totality, and for that matter he was not in favor of allowing right to inheritance, even though he suggested that trustee should be given a certain proportion of the profit, but after the death there should be a complete tax over whatever the property he has left after the death, and that should be given to the society. So in that way, through the principle of trusteeship, he wanted to reorganize society. Even the mode of production has moved fast toward the capitalist system, he wanted to restore the balance by converting the owners of capital into trustee of capital, land and assets. Related to his above arguments and theories is also his views on machine, but there are a few confusions about Gandhi's views on machine. Some of the people understand that Gandhi was in blind opposition to all kinds of machine. In fact, Gandhi was not in total opposition to all kinds of machine, but he was in opposition to the machine which was displacing human labor from the productive employment, which was destroying dignity of labor, which was flooding in industrial goods in the society, which was ruining the village handicrafts. So he was of the view that industry could be of various categories. Some of the industry could be useful, some of the industry could not be so much useful. Depending on the nature of industry, he formulated his idea, and he said that if machine based industry if it does not lead to some of the evils which the capitalist society has produced, then probably we have to think that what kind of machine would be desirable and what kind of machine would not be desirable. So is the case with industrialization, that if the machine which promotes a kind of industrialization which destroys the village society, which destroys the handicraft, which destroys the small and medium industry, which lead to large scale employment, then this kind of machine, this kind of industry should be opposed and should not be allowed. But if the machine which leads to promotion of the welfare of the society, even for that matter the handloom, Gandhi was in favor of allowing machine to the extent that it does not lead to large scale displacement of labor by machine, because to Gandhi machine was primarily a reflection of instrument of violence, instrument of coercion, and labor was a reflection of instrument of peace, instrument of harmony. So he argued that machine has to be opposed based on the nature of machine, not that he was in favor of opposing all kind of machine, opposing all kind of industry. When Gandhi was asked about the question of heavy industry, he was in favor of having certain industry which were completely indispensable, but he was not in favor of industry which could have been done by the small or even the handicraft industry. For example, the cotton textile industry, Gandhi was completely opposed to industry or the heavy machine use production of cotton textile industry, because he thought that this could be produced by millions and millions of workers across the country, and bringing machine will rather ruin those weavers, those industrial small and medium industry worker in the country and the handicraft worker in the country. This will not only ruin their industry, but this will ruin the society, because finally this will lead to the unemployment of a large number of people who will not find any other employment, and because of unemployment there would be many other evils which will follow in the society. Then coming to some of his political thought of Gandhi about colonialism and nationalism, Gandhi related the two in interrelated manner. Gandhi was opposed to colonialism primarily because it was exploitative, it was leading to a kind of establishment, leading to a kind of civilization where one nation based on industrial power was exploiting other nation, was bringing one country, one society under its almost like a kind of slave and master relation. So Gandhi opposed colonialism and colonization primarily because it was a kind of, it was based on violence, it was based on expression of force in the society. As I mentioned earlier, that to Gandhi colonialism was also an expression of capitalism, because the need of colonialism arises because of the expansive need of market of the capitalist industrial society, because under capitalism lots of goods were being produced which were not getting absorbed in the local market, but to search for the market, these industrialists or the capitalists were looking for the market outside, and to look for the market outside they were compelled to look for the colony where they could sell their products which were produced in their own countries. But at the same time they were not only selling their products in the other country and the colonies, but they were also destroying the local industry and local society, because they were taking away the job of the local people and producing in the big industries where there itself they were not able to employ a large number of people. So for him this colonialism and capitalism were interrelated, and because of this colonialism and capitalism, capital relations, there was the problem of colonization across the country. Gandhi developed his idea of nationalism as something which would not lead to another kind of colonialism or other kind of Western nationalism where it would lead to colonization of other country. Gandhi in fact was propagating an idea of nationalism where it would lead to a kind of universal humanism. Through his nationalism, he wanted to relate the one country to the other country, and through other country to the entire civilization. So for him, nationalism was something which would not lead to, or which will not remain in confrontation with the other nationalism or other nation, but it would lead to a kind of harmonious relations with other nations, and that would lead to a kind of humanization of the entire civilizations, where each nation will remain in a kind of cordial and harmonious relation with other nations. It will not live in a kind of confrontationist, in kind of hostile relation with other nation. Then after defining his idea of nationalism, Gandhi came to defining Swaraj, what he meant by Swaraj and what he meant by Swaraj for India. While defining Swaraj, Gandhi distinguished between two important concepts that I mentioned earlier. One is the self-rule and self-governance. In fact, Gandhi was opposed to the idea of both moderate and extremist, simply because both of them were pleading for self-governance and not self-rule. Gandhi distinguishes between the two terms, and then he explains his idea of Swaraj. First, he says that self-governance can be achieved without British government, even with British government, but self-rule cannot be achieved if India remains a colonial country, if India remains under British rule. But to achieve self-rule, Gandhi emphasized on the development of the individual, because for him the center of self-rule lies in individual. Gandhi argued that self-rule cannot be achieved simply by throwing British colonizer out of the country, or getting them away from the country, or making them to flee this country. Even if British leaves the country, but if we are not able to internalize self-rule, then probably another kind of colonization will develop inside the country. So British colonizer will be replaced by Indian colonizer, and to fight out this evil and to rule out this kind of situation, Gandhi pleaded for self-rule based Swaraj, in which self-rule is to be achieved by a satyagrahi, because the center of entire philosophy of Gandhi lies in the person, lies in individual, who Gandhi calls him satyagrahi. And here he explains the four principles and the four qualities of satyagrahi. The first is that he should be a follower of brahmacharya. He should believe in satya, he should believe in truth, and he should try to live his life to the best of most truthfully, and he should be free from any kind of fear, including the fear of death, and he should be free of greed. These are the four principles on which a satyagrahi could develop himself as an agent of self-rule. So for Gandhi, if everybody rules himself, and how to rule himself, for that matter he explains these four principles, that if everybody follow these four principles in his life, then he becomes satyagrahi. And if everybody becomes satyagrahi, then he becomes a follower of self-rule. And if everybody becomes a follower of self-rule, then there would be a kind of Swaraj in the country. But if we replace just British ruler by Indian ruler, then Swaraj would not come to India. And he was not in idea of this kind of Swaraj, where British ruler will be replaced by another kind of Indian ruler. So for him, this would be a simply replacement of one category of ruler by another category of ruler. But through this, he argued that Swaraj would not come to India. If India has to be really free from, and if India has to really get Swaraj, then India or Indian society must produce satyagrahi, and every satyagrahi must follow these four principles. Only then we would be able to achieve Swaraj and self-rule. Gandhi then also made some interesting observation about Swaraj. For example, he wrote about Swaraj. Gandhi pleaded that real Swaraj will not come by gaining political independence from the British. It will come through certain moral development, and these moral developments are the four principles which he prescribed for the satyagrahi. The real Swaraj consists in restraint. He alone is capable of this, who leads a moral life, does not cheat anyone, does not forsake truth, and does his duty. These are the principles which every Satyagrahi or which every disciple of Satyagrahi must follow to achieve Swaraj. Then he further explains that India was once looked upon as a golden land because Indians then were the people of sterling worth. The land is still the same, but the people have changed, and that is why it has become arid. To transform it into a golden land once again, we must transform ourselves into gold by leading a life of virtue. The philosopher state a stone which can bring this about consists of two syllables, satya and truth. If therefore every Indian makes it a point to follow truth always, India will achieve Swaraj as a matter of course. And this was his main principle of Swaraj, through which he wanted to transform not only the political system but also the social system, where every individual will follow truth, will follow fear from greed, freedom from greed, fear from any freedom from any fear. He will follow brahmacharya, and he will be adherent to principle of satya throughout his life. After explaining some of his principles of Swaraj, Gandhi also explained the nature of a state, because for him it was very important to explain the nature of a state, and his idea of nature of a state was formed in response to the kind of a state which he has seen as a British colonial state. Gandhi was abhorred to the idea of a state which was ruling through force, which was ruling through coercion, because for him the basic principle of life should be non-violence, non-coercion, and satya and ahimsa. If you abdicate these principles and establish a state which is again based on coercion, which is again based on violence, then Gandhi argued that probably this kind of a state would not lead to kind of Swaraj, a kind of independence which he was aiming at that point of time. But for Gandhi to achieve this kind of a state, again he came back to Swaraj, that if we don't attain Swaraj in full respect, that means if we don't attain Swaraj by converting every Indian into Satyagrahi, every Indian into a disciple of self-rule, then we will not be able to achieve Swaraj. If we are not able to achieve Swaraj, then probably even the state which Gandhi was visualizing would not be achieved, because to convert a state into a violence-free state, into a kind of a state which would not be based on violence and force, then Gandhi thought that to achieve this we must first convert our society, and if we are able to convert our society, only then we would be able to achieve a kind of a state which would not be based on coercion. Gandhi was opposed to the state which was based on force, which was based on coercion, which was based on violence, and his idea is that a state, the modern state, the basic organizing principle of modern state is force and coercion and violence. And that's why Gandhi said that if we had to establish a kind of state, he would not favor this kind of a state, because this state is based on principle of violence, principle of force, principle of coercion. If the state is established, if the basic nature of a state is force and coercion, then Gandhi did not want this kind of a state to be implemented or to be adopted in India, and he wanted a kind of a state which would not be based on force, which would not be based on coercion and violence. And to achieve this state, he pleaded that we must achieve first Swaraj. If we achieve the Swaraj, only then this kind of a state would be achieved. Then how to organize this kind of Swaraj, and how to organize this kind of a state, and how to harmonize the idea of a state and Swaraj with village republics. To explain the interlinkages with these three principles, Gandhi explained in detail how this village republic will be organized. Gandhi gave the idea that if you have to achieve the kind of perfect Swaraj, if you have to achieve a kind of a state which he was aiming at that time, one has to go on, India must go to village republics. But how this village republic will be organized, to explain this, Gandhi developed a principle where he said that individual would be the center of this village republic, and each individual would practice the principles of Satyagraha, the 4 principles which he had explained earlier. So, based on that, those 4 principles, if everybody follows the life of Satyagrahi, and then he becomes a member of village society, then this village society will be a kind of self-ruled society where everybody follow the principles of Satyagraha, and in that way the village will not need any kind of external force to be governed, any kind of external coercion or force of a state to be governed. So, it will become a kind of self-ruled village republic, and this village republic, there will be republic after republic, and this will be a kind of binding circle, like if you throw a stone in the river on a pond, in the current which spread outside. Gandhi gives the idea that this village republic would be like this, that in the center of this the whole idea would be individual, and then from individual there would be society, from society individual society then would be village, and from village there would be a number of villages, and this will form a kind of ideal Indian society. But in village republics he brought all those ideas which he had pleaded earlier, which he had preached earlier, like for example this idea of dignity of labor, his idea of education, his idea of women's empowerment, his idea of caste, varna and stability. All those ideas which he had pleaded and I have explained earlier should form the core of his village republics, in which the basic principles of organization would be self-rule, and the self-rule would be pleaded by a Satyagrahi, and a Satyagrahi would be the one who would follow the 4 principles of Satyagraha, and based on those 4 principles he would be a citizen of village republic, and this village republics will be organized in a manner that Gandhi argued that we would not need any police force, we would not need any modern jail, we would not need any modern judiciary, because the cases would be, first thing is that there would not be many cases of the violation of rights, there would not be many cases of exploitation, because every body of this village society would follow the principle of Satyagraha, then there would be a kind of complete discipline in the society, and in that society we do not need police, we do not need judiciary, we do not need jail, we do not need coercive state forces. So, for him, if we are able to establish village republics in true sense of the term, we would not need the kind of a state which was existing at that time and which many of the developed country, industrial countries had developed in terms of a very awesome state organization. And Gandhi was opposed to this kind of a state, because to him this kind of a state leads to violence, this kind of a state is based on the force and brutal, simply brutal force, and so if any state or if a state is organized on the simple brute force, then probably the state is also a violent state, and Gandhi was not able to accept any organization and any institution which is organized on the simple force or which is organized on violence. So, to him the state should be a kind of a state which would be a minimal state, because in this state everybody would follow his own self-defined self-rule principles. If everybody follows self-defined self-rule principles, Gandhi has given the 4 principles for Satyagrahi. If everybody adhere to those 4 principles and then follows his own discipline, then probably we would not need any kind of police or a state, and for that matter he said that we would need a kind of minimal state where every citizen of the state would be self-governed, would be follower of self-rule and Satyagraha. Then there are some critiques of these village republics, because people argue that his idea of this village republic was a bit mystical formulation. The way Gandhi explained this village republic, a kind of widening circle, then he was not able to explain how the center or how the state at the national and the provincial level would be formed. But Gandhi did not in fact envisage this kind of this kind of idea where there would be a national level state or provincial level state. He was giving a kind of ideal situation. In fact, Gandhi also later on clarified that his formulation of village republics is a kind of ideal situation, which even he thought that it would be difficult to achieve, but he thought that this would be a kind of model which Indian society should try to achieve. At least in terms of the local level organizing system, we must follow a kind of local self-government, or we must follow a kind of governance where the system would be completely decentralized. Gandhi was not in favor of having a kind of complete or a kind of a central control state structure which will rule from the center, which he has seen that during the colonial administration the basic problem was that it was being governed from the top, and in this kind of governance you don't follow any of the principles which Gandhi was emphasizing as a principle of satyagraha, principle of non-violence, principle of non-cooperation. So to him, if the society has to be organized and that society, if a state at all has to exist, this state will exist but in a minimal form where the role of police and judiciary would be minimum, because Gandhi also realized that his idea of village republics was a kind of model to be followed as some kind of ideal situation which would not be implemented in totality in practice, and that's why as a compromise he said that let us have a kind of a state, but this state would be a kind of minimal state, but this state will allow at the local level the self-sufficient, self-governed villages to be run by their own people, and the state and the government from the top will not interfere in most of the activities of the village governance. Gandhi was also opposed to the modern judiciary primarily because he thought that modern judiciary is based on the principle of adversity. Gandhi was of the idea that if we have this kind of modern judiciary, this will not lead to crime-free society. To him, to achieve a kind of crime-free society, we need a society which follows the principle of satyagraha, which follows the principle of self-rule, and where if we have all these things, then probably we would not need either modern judiciary, we would not need either modern police to enforce some of the rules and regulations, and we would not need even judiciary to adjudicate some of those violations of rules. Before I come to some of the other points of Gandhi, I would like to underline 2-3 important things about reading of Gandhi literature. The first important thing which one must always understand, or which one must always keep in mind, that if you look at the ideas of Gandhi, then you must look his idea in totality, because most of the ideas of Gandhi are interrelated with one another. If you look one idea as a kind of separate category or separate idea different from other idea, then you are not able to understand his other idea, or you are not able to understand his idea in a proper manner in which he wanted to have this idea. For example, if you understand dignity of labor, if you have to understand dignity of labor, you have to also understand his ideas on machine. If you have to also understand dignity of labor, you have to also understand his idea on capitalism, his ideas on village republics, his ideas on the nature of village industry. You have to also understand his idea on education, because all these things are interrelated and you can't segregate one and understand other. If you do that, then you sometimes come to wrong conclusion. The second important thing is that to understand Gandhi, you must understand some of the fundamental principles of his thought, because some of his ideas, some of his other ideas are based on a few fundamental principles. For example, satyagraha, non-violence. These are the important principles of Gandhian political and social philosophy, and in every principle and every idea of Gandhi, you will find that there is an element of satyagraha, there is an element of non-violence. If you remove these two principles from his other thought or other ideas, then you will get a kind of misleading picture. So to understand Gandhi, you must understand some of the basic principles, philosophical principle of his idea, that is like satyagraha, that is like non-violence, that is like harmony between body and mind. These are some of the basic principles on which he developed most of his idea. So, to understand Gandhi, you must also understand some of the basic principles on which his other ideas were developed. And thirdly, one must also look at the other clarifications of Gandhi. One should not jump in terms of criticizing Gandhi's idea without reading his other explanations. Gandhi himself explained a number of times like that even he had been changing his idea based on the development of new thought and experiment with new idea, but basic ideas remain constant in his political and social philosophy. So, basic ideas remain constant, but some of the other ideas were changing. So, if you pick up something and you leave the other things, then probably you also become unnecessarily critical of something for which Gandhi should not be criticized, because he has been always improving on his ideas, and he explained a number of times very categorically that this idea is different from the idea which he gave earlier, but the basic principles which led to the formulation of this idea remain the same. So, if you understand if you have to understand Gandhi, then I suggest that the three things are very important. First is that you must read Gandhi in totality, you must understand Gandhi in totality. Second thing is that you must understand the basic principles of Gandhi's social and political philosophy. And the third thing is that before reading some of his ideas, you should acquaint yourself with his basic philosophy and with his basic understanding or with his other writings. Only then you would be able to understand Gandhi's thought in a proper manner. And I think if there is any question, I will take up a few questions.
But this note, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. As you yourself explained about the Gandhian thoughts, he has 3-4 elements like on non-violence. He emphasized on satyagraha. What are the books available through which the students who are watching us through this lecture can revive or can go through these books and can have deep insight into the Gandhian thoughts?
There are a number of books which would be useful. Like for students, a basic text on Indian political thought is by B.P. Burma, which is read across the university. But to read Gandhi, this B.P. Burma is not sufficient. I would suggest that the student should also read some of Gandhi's own work, and here I would refer that the most important work is Hind Swaraj. This is not a voluminous work which can be read easily by any student. So, to understand Gandhi, I think if anybody, even a student, he tries to read Hind Swaraj, then it would be a kind of excellent reading of Gandhi. But even there are some interesting commentary on Gandhi's Hind Swaraj. There is one one published by Cambridge University Press, Hind Swaraj, and it's kind of commentary on Hind Swaraj. That would be an excellent reading. Then some of the other books on Gandhi, by most of them are biographical, but a large number of them are also on Gandhi's philosophy and ideas. You could read, for example, B.N. Ganguly on social philosophy of Gandhi. One could read Bhikkhu Parikh on Gandhi's other thought. One can read some you could read even Rajmohan Gandhi for developing about his biographical and other things also. So, a number of books are available on Gandhi's social and political thought, but for a student they must go by some basic test. I would suggest if they read like B.P. Burma, and then if they read this important test which has been reproduced by Cambridge University Press on Gandhi Hind Swaraj, and then they could also read like Gandhi's My Experiment with Truth to a certain point.
Definitely the students can read all the books as said by Dr. Ashok Kumar Pankaj, and as well as you can revive what Dr. Ashok Kumar Pankaj has delivered through this lecture with the help of YouTube, as very soon we are going to upload this lecture on YouTube, with the help of which you can see this lecture, you can have the insight number of times you want it. So, dear friends, we would be meeting again very soon and would be talking on one of the another important topics under political sciences. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.